Hello. So I was really impressed with the Huda Beauty powder that I got in PR, and they've recently come out with color correctors. And if you've watched any of my complexion videos, you know that I really struggle with concealer and that I usually use color correctors. So I managed to get one of these in PR. I believe it was the one in pink pomelo. And then the other one I picked up, the one in Cherry Blossom. I thought the pink pomelo one was a little bit on the orange side. So I figured I would do a quick review of these for you and also compare them to my other current concealers. And we'll see how they stack up, how they compare, and what I think about them. So before I go into the other things, let's compare these. Let's talk about the packaging. So overall, I'm not a huge fan of this packaging for the main reason of this doe foot is huge. This is a overall pretty thick product, and it doesn't really, you don't need a lot of it. Like that right there is probably more than I would use on either of my under eyes. And I didn't even take all of the product off of this doe foot. So I have to be really careful when I use this that if I am placing this on my under eyes directly, that I am just barely tapping the tip of this to my under eyes. I also don't like that when you go to put this back in, there's like this pressure. I don't know if you can like see that, but like it doesn't want to go back in. And I think that has something to do with how big the doe foot is, but I'm not entirely sure. But that's kind of the only negative thing I have to say about this product. I think that this is really lovely. I tend to have a lot of problems with liquid products, so I tend to not get them. I think the last one I got was from House Labs, and even though I could tell it was a brilliant product, it was really good, it just was too finicky for me to use every day, and so I decluttered it. I was like, I'm not going to use this. So let me show you how this blends out because it's really nice. So here's the three concealer brushes that I usually use with liquid. I do have Sonia G's, what are they called? I do have some of her Fusion series brushes, but I prefer those more for creams than for liquids. I find with straight up liquids like these, even really thick liquids, uh, synthetic brushes are the way to go. And yes, all of these are really dirty, so sorry. But I want to show you how this moves on the skin because I feel like with complexion products, the texture of these is probably the hardest thing to show in reviews, but it's also like the most important. But you see how evenly that goes across? And I'm using a really dirty brush, by the way. Like, this brush is not helping anything. It just goes so nice and evenly over the skin, and it blends in really nice. This is the color Cherry Blossom, by the way. I think I forgot to say that. But you see how like nice that is? And I think that's one of the beautiful things about this product is just how thin you can get it, and it doesn't cake up, doesn't look weird. I do have issues with this creasing beneath my eyes, but that's like my issue with everything ever. But you see how that blends in? Like, yeah, there's like this edge over here because I didn't blend that in. But it just blends in so nicely. This is the only thing that I've been able to use as an actual color corrector in that I can layer this underneath other things. I can layer these one on top of the other. I can layer either one of these underneath either one of the Bobbi Browns. I don't really try to layer anything beneath this, but actually maybe I should try that. I'm kind of curious to see what that would look like. I don't usually mix liquids and powders. It's just I don't bother doing that usually. So you can see just with like patting it out with something like this, how easy that is to get really thin coverage, but also like I think you can see like how uniform this looks over here compared to the side of my hand. Like you can't see my green undertone through this right now. So let me show you how it blends out with something else. Because I think I really like sweeping, and I don't love a brush like that concealer brush I was just showing you. I don't use that very often. And you can kind of get the same effect with this kind of a brush. And this is probably my favorite brush for liquid concealer from Pat McGrath. I know a lot of people complain that this was too small, but it's the right size for my under eyes. And that's actually the reason I don't use this very often. This is a little bit too big, kind of similar to the one that I have from Refer that has a somewhat similar shape. But yeah, all of these just do a really nice job of blending this out. And I just think that's lovely. I usually have a really hard time with my skin being so oily. It just does weird things to liquid formulas like this. Usually it'll end up like drying, sort of crackling almost. I don't really know why, but like, let's compare. So you can see like side by side. I'm sorry, my lighting sucks. That'll give you a little bit more light. Not great light, but a little bit more. But you see how natural that looks? Isn't that beautiful? I love it. Now the downfall for this formula for me is that it's liquid, and so it still does funky things underneath my eyes. But I think why that happens is I just have really oily skin, and it does something weird to liquid formulas where I think liquid formulas do this really beautiful thing where they blend in with your skin and they create this like coat on top of your skin. And something about my oily skin will go in and make that coat kind of flake away. And what that looks like underneath my eyes is it'll go in and sort of create these really deep creases. Now, I say that because usually with color correctors, I try to use them as a concealer, not as a color corrector. These don't work well for me as concealers unless I'm going for just extremely minimal coverage, because you can go like, these are full coverage, by the way. I consider these a full coverage product. I don't know what it says on the website, but these have a lot of coverage to them. But you can really thin this out, and that's what I do. I just take this and put the absolute thinnest amount on my skin possible. And because of that, it doesn't do weird things as long as I get it really thin. If I leave it really thick, if I try to use it as a concealer and actually conceal things with it, my skin does weird things to it. But using it as a color corrector, I can layer underneath things. And that's really cool because as much as I like, or actually I don't love this one, but I like this one by Bobbi Brown a little bit better. My issue with this is, like, this creases the least out of everything that I've tried, but it still creases. And it's kind of annoying because then you kind of see like the skin underneath, and then there's that contrast, and then the crease shows up even more. But if I have a thin layer of one of these underneath, this looks better, and it sits better on my skin. So I think that's really interesting. But long story short, I'm able to use these as a really nice color corrector. Not so much as concealer. I still leave that to Bobbi Brown. I still leave that to my powder concealer from Bare Minerals. So let me do swatches so you can see the color of these. All right, so let's do Pink Pomelo first. Actually, taking everything out of the screen so that it'll actually focus on my arm. So this is Pink Pomelo. Oh, see how much this puts on. I don't love that about this. But this one's pretty orangey on my skin. I think for most people this is probably going to be a good pinky peach corrector. Doesn't quite work for me, but I have a lot of pink and green to my skin. I can really see the green today. And then next one is Cherry Blossom. And I find that Cherry Blossom works a bit better for my skin tone if I'm using this, or if I'm trying to use it as a concealer, because this one is a lot more pink and just overall more cool toned. And then comparing this to Bobbi Brown. You can see, or actually let me give you a little bit more of a swatch. There we go. You can see how, and this is in light bisque. And you can see how light bisque is, it's lighter and it's a little bit less pink. And I think that's what just makes me so happy about these products is there's a lot of depth and tone to these. Most color correctors have just an obscene amount of white mixed into them. And so if you're not super fair, you can't really use them. And if you're of a deeper skin tone, I don't know how deep these can go, but it's a lot deeper than most color correctors that I've seen before. So what's funny about this is part of the reason that this doesn't make a good concealer for me is it's actually too dark, which is great because that's not my usual issue. My usual issue with pink color correctors is that they're pasty white on me. So I really appreciate and respect that this is a darker pink. I really love that. Now I find that as a color corrector, like if I layer one of these underneath the Bobbi Brown color corrector, I think either one of these works fine with helping with my under eye circles. So I'm not sure if I'll keep both of them, but I thought this was really interesting to see them next to each other, what the difference in tones are. So I'll show you this one too. This one is, it's supposed to be the same color as the color in the pot, but I think it has a little bit more pink to it and a little bit less peachiness. All right, so here we have Huda Pink Pomelo, Huda Cherry Blossom, Bobbi Brown Light Bisque, the top one in the pot formulation and the bottom one in the stick formulation. So I really love that they came out with this cherry blossom color because I don't think that this is a color that I've really seen before in a color corrector, and certainly not in a concealer. So overall, I'm really excited to have these, but I was able to pick up the one in Pink Pomelo in PR, and then I realized, oh, they had this other one that might suit me better, so I picked that one up as well. And I'm happy to have tried both of these side by side because I think I would have been a little bit disappointed if I had only tried Pink Pomelo because to me this isn't very pink, it's kind of orange. But the Cherry Blossom one from Huda is very much a pink color. I do think that it still has there is a slight peachiness to it, but I do not think that very many people will see that peachiness next to their skin tone. I think it's just because I just have a very strong olive undertone and I'm very cool toned, so anything that has any sort of peach in it, I'll be able to see it on my skin tone. But yeah, I think the formulation of these is great. If you, like me, have a lot of trouble being able to layer things, these are great for layering. These actually can work as a color corrector for me. And I've never been able to do that before. I've never had anything that layers well, either with itself or with something else. And that was true with the House Labs concealer as well. I tried to layer that on top of or beneath either one of the Bobbi Brown color correctors, and that always turned into a cakey mess. But if I put these underneath my eyes in a very thin fashion, I can easily put the Bobbi Brown on top of it, and my under eye circles are basically erased then. And I've never been able to do that before, so it's pretty cool. So yeah, if you have a lot of problem finding color correctors that aren't too white for you, aren't too light for you, I would definitely try these out. I think they're really neat. And if you like this formulation a lot, I think that this is the same formula that Huda uses for their concealers. So if you wanted to, I find that these layer fine one on top of the other. You could probably pick up a concealer and layer on top of this as well. Oh wait, I do have one other corrector. I know I was forgetting something. So this is from e.l.f. This is the Putty color correcting eye brightener in whatever their pinkest formulation is. I think this is Fair. I don't think they have one that's called pink, but it's just called Fair. And I don't like the pot of this that you have to like reach in. It's not particularly ergonomic. And I always found this to be more pink than the Bobbi Brown, and also more like translucent. Like it doesn't seem to have like a base that really shows up on me, which I appreciate. But it's also just incredibly emollient, and that creates a lot of issues for me as someone with really oily skin. So in case you wanted to see those all side by side. So yeah, I'm really impressed with the Huda Beauty complexion products that I've gotten so far. Like I said before, I've gotten these in, or well, I got one of these in PR, and then I got the powder in PR. I wouldn't have purchased them otherwise, so I'm really happy to have gotten these because they're really interesting products, and I think that they're really high quality. And in particular, I'm happy to get the powder because this was the other powder I was considering when I was purchasing my Westman Atelier powder. But it was really nice to be able to use these side by side and see what the differences are. I don't think either one of these is good as like my one and only powder, but I do think that they're both good in their own way. This one's really expensive though. But yeah, I'm really happy to have these. I don't know which of these that I'm going to keep. Like I said, I don't think it makes sense for me to have both of these. I'm not going to go through these. I have no idea how anyone would go through all of either one of these, just because the formulation can just be spread so thin. Like you don't have to use very much of this. I mean, unless you're going for like high coverage, high glam, then I guess then I could see how you could go through this. But anyway, I'm very impressed with these products. I've been really enjoying using them. I think they've been adding to my routine a lot. I don't know if I would go out and purchase them if I didn't have them though. Like they're really nice things to have in my routine, but they don't make or break my routine, if that makes sense. I think I'm mostly just floored that I'm actually able to layer these underneath another formula. I've never been able to do that with anything ever. It just always ends up being a texture mess. So yeah, I'm really impressed by these. Hopefully I've included all relevant information, but if you have any questions, let me know below. I am more than happy to answer your questions. And for those of you who made it to the end of this video, thank you so much. I really appreciate you sticking around. And I hope to see you in the next video. So, bye for now.